Hey everyone, welcome back to Drive On. I'm your host, Scott DeLuzio, and today my guest is Tim Thomas. He's the founder of Breathwork in Bed, and he draws from his special forces experience, and he's created some of Australia's most successful veteran mental health recovery programs with a focus on improving wellness and sleep quality through means like breathwork. He really understands the key aspects of a good life, and so today we're going to dive deep into how we can keep our mind and body connected, why generosity matters, and how sleep can be a game changer. But before we get into all that, Tim, I want to welcome you to the show. Glad to have you here.
Scotty, so great to be here. I've been so looking forward to this show. I've literally spent the last 3 hours preparing my mind, body, and spirit so I can be with you, your audience, and give the best of everything I have to you and your audience.
Hey man, that is awesome. That you go out of your way doing all that for us, and like we were talking a little bit before the episode got started here, before this recording got started. We were talking about how can we best help the veterans out there, and sleep obviously is a huge issue.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to get into all that. Before we do that, tell us a little bit about your background, maybe some of your experiences in the special forces. And things along those lines.
Yeah, sure. So, I growing up dyslexic, I really struggled with the mainstream academia, but I always felt very at home. I just felt smarter when I accessed my own body.
Mm.
And I was later to find out that when you exercise, you cover your neural pathways with glucose, oxygen, and something called BDNF, brain derived neurotrophic factor, which basically is like fertilizer for your brain. So as much as I didn't know it, it felt right that to sort of access your body. Now I sort of worked out that energy is like money. How you invest it is how you get it back. And I just started investing in things that gave me a really good return. Um, and you have to see your own investments before anyone else does. So I hung out with a lot of conservative people. So when I started becoming a professional fighter, they're saying, "Oh, fighting is wrong; it's bad." But I could see that when I invested, $100 worth of energy, I got $10,000 back. And I had this idea of living like an energetic millionaire, right? And I think we can all do that. And I think that's what a really good morning routine and a quality sleep will give you, right? And so I jumped into the early days of mixed martial arts, but back then it was called no rules fighting, and there was literally no rules. You in the rules sort of preparation before the fights would go on, the guy would say, "Okay, there's no digit insertion, but anything else goes." And guys would work out. It was pretty clever. A guy would get in a mount, grab the other guy's skull, and drive his chin into the guy's eye socket, right? Because that's not a digit. That's a that's a
Sure,
guy's chin, right?
that's a
That's
loophole.
pretty clever, right? But that's the kind of you know. I trained probably 7 days a week, 2 to 3 times a day for probably 6 or 7 years. I didn't have a lot to show for it, and in 2004, the Australian government had a military history first. They created a scheme called the DRSF scheme, Direct Recruiting into Special Forces. And this had never happened before because to just even apply for special forces, you had to spend 2 years in a regular, battalion infantry unit before you could even apply. And here was a scheme that could take civilians to streamline them through into special forces. Now, of course, you had to, before you could even apply, you had to pass physical examinations, mental, psychological, aptitude, blah, 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 blah. And I was told that there was between 5 and 10,000 people initially apply. That got narrowed down to 70. I was in the 70. You do all your basic stuff, and then you do your advanced stuff. And after about 10 months of no weekends, you get to apply for Special Forces selection. The Navy SEALs have Hell Week. We have 28 days of hell. And in the Special Forces, everyone's always trying to one up each other. So that's just a,
Sure.
a dig to any Navy SEALs out there. Um, um, but the Army was particularly resistant to this scheme because we were considered civilian queue jumpers. So they did everything they could to stop the scheme. A statistic we have at our basic infantry training is we've got 300% more injuries than any other platoon to go through there. What they used to like to do was crawl us through cactus. So where we trained at Singleton in New South Wales, they had these cactuses that were like the barbs on them were about 2 inches long, and they would go through your boot. And you'd have to use your bayonet to pull it out of your own body, right? But you had to be careful, because if you flicked off this bunch of thorns too much, it would flick off and hit someone else. You know?
You're not making any friends that way, right?
Anyway, but after they crawled us through the cactus, they'd crawl us through these fields of kangaroo shit. Okay, so the wounds would get infected. So
Oh,
it was and you'd get this bursitis, and your elbows would swell up to the size of a grapefruit. So there was a deliberate attempt to stop this scheme because they thought we couldn't cut it. The best thing that ever happened to us, Scotty, was Afghanistan kicking off, and then we showed we could do everything and more that anyone else could do, and they became a big fan of the scheme, and that scheme continues to this day.
Awesome. So it's kind of like a fast track to doing that, but you're still going through hell as you're going through it, right? They're not
guys that started,
lightening the load.
Yeah, absolutely. As of the 70 guys that started, and sorry to jump over the top here, less than 15 got through, and no one thought I would make it because I was the oldest allowable age at 30.
Okay.
I got the nickname Old Man Tomo.
Awesome. But it wasn't an easy go after getting through all of that for you too, right? You had some in Afghanistan, you had some issues there too. Tell us a little bit about some of those incidents, and maybe how that shaped your outlook as far as how all that took place.
Well, look, I was one of those guys that was sort of pretty clumsy on base. Like, I was always fucking something up, right? But in the field, and because of that, I was that sort of clumsy dude, and I didn't really understand military culture. I asked far too many questions. Okay. I was that guy, when the officer said any questions, and then they immediately go to move on. I'm like, I got a question, sir. I'm like, fucking Tomo. All right. So anyway, I struggled on base, but I also struggled with military culture. So it made it very easy for, insecure alpha males always need someone to put down, because obviously in their mind, energy is limited. So for them to have energy, they've got to take it from someone else. So I was a guy that was very easily bagged out, or as in the unit they call, I was a shit cunt, right? That's Australian vernacular for the shit cunt, right? Anyway, when Afghanistan kicked off, I feel I didn't know how I would do over there, right? But I just said, look, I'm not going to be tough, but if something impacts my sleep, I'm going to pay attention to that. And I was later to find out that I've got sort of Germanic ancestry, and I was later to find out that one of my ancestors was in the personal bodyguard of the Kaiser. And so obviously there's you got to be comfortable with violence and that sort of stuff when that happens. And so I felt that I was built for combat. It was something I could do and sleep well at night. That said, because I was the shit cunt on base, if there's a sergeant that wants to get to you, they've got ways of getting to you, right? And so there was an amount of bullying, and that, and what ended up happening was you could bully me, beat me up. I'm resilient, right? But this particular sergeant found a way to put my family at risk, and that was okay. This is like, that's not something I'd ever experienced before. Having those I love most kind of used against me. And I think my PTSD post-service stemmed from that, but also from a experience where we're heading into an ambush, and it's not anything particularly new in Afghanistan. There's ambushes every day, but on this one, we knew it was coming, and the standard drills is you put the heavily armored vehicles to the rear of the convoy, because that's the ones that are it's the rear vehicle that usually gets attacked because it's least defended. And the vehicle we're in, Australian Special Forces, normally travel in a four-wheel drive with the roof cut off. And in the rush to get into formation before the ambush, this heavily armored vehicle cut us off. And that completely triggered me, because here was an officer putting his own ass in my mind. He put his own ass first and left us to be the guy that's going to get the vehicle that's going to get smashed. And so
Sure.
there I was, and most of us have lost brothers and done a ramp ceremony, carrying the coffin with the flag over it, and I'm seeing my own ramp ceremony, and my then wife, kids. And I'm mad as hell. It literally, my brain just cooked itself. And in that space, I asked myself a question that has pretty much guided every event after it. And the question was this: Tim, who do you know who has done this before? And how did they get through it? Now, in Australia, we have Anzacs, who went up, the beach at Gallipoli against Turkish defenders that knew they were coming. And then I'm like, yeah, I do know someone who's done this before, the Anzacs. And what did those Anzacs do? They kept moving forward, and they didn't let the outside world stop them seeing the power inside of them.
Sure.
And in Australia, we say on Anzac Day, lest we forget, lest we forget, the sacrifice of those gone before us. And this was over 100 years ago, this beach landing, but it was like a portal in time opened up, Scotty, and those Anzacs came through it, poked me in the chest and said, Tim, lest you forget the power inside of you, lest you forget the power of looking after your mates. And no shit, Scotty, it was like night turned into day. The sun coming up at midnight. It was like my whole body felt illuminated. All right. Because when I was in my own head going, fuck that cunt, I was alone and isolated. And as social mammals, we're supposed to be connected to each other. Like, Scotty, if you knew I had your back 100% and you had my back 100%, like, everything else is a very small detail. It's how we're wired. We're built for connection. But if I'm feeling alone and isolated, everything's a threat because everything is a threat. And everything's hard because everything is hard when I'm feeling all alone.
Sure. Yeah, it's hard alone, right?
Yeah. So when I asked that question, who do I know that has done this before? And these motherfuckers poked me in the chest. It was like the tourniquet came off my intelligence. I actually went to this place. It was like a drone going up. I could see it all, and I'm like, okay, what do we know, Tim? We know that RPGs self-detonate at 1,500 meters, which in yards is, I don't know, 1,800 meters. So I'm thinking they're going to be shooting at us between 800 to 1,200 meters. They're not going to want to be too close. So if we just swing that as an arc from their place of origin, and we're going at 35 kilometers an hour in this convoy, I'm going to be in the kill box for 3 to 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, I can deal with that. You know what? And then something really cool happened. My circulatory system jumped out of my body, and I'm looking at it like it was a street directory. Okay, I'm seeing blood going from my heart to my arms, my legs, and back up to my brain. I'm like, the brain is the critical part here. All I have to do is maintain positive pressure to my brain, and I'm going to get through this. Okay, I can lose an arm. That's fine. I don't have to worry about an infection. I just got to, hose clamp that, and then that'll keep positive pressure. But even if I bleed out and die, my brothers in the vehicle are going to revive me with a saline drip, So
Sure.
Breaking my isolation, tapping into my higher thinking gave me energy, gave me options, got me connected to those around me, and that perspective gave me thoughts that I never would have had if I stayed isolated and pissed off and this fucking cunt did me wrong, right?
Sure, sure.
I said, look, you know what? They might find my body in 5 minutes' time. But you know what they're not going to find? Magazines full of bullets. I'm emptying all ammunition on this one.
I like it.
And then I'm like, you know what, Tim? There's something in that. It doesn't matter if you die in 5 minutes' time or 50 years' time. Your magazines contain simple bullets. But your mind, Scotty, everyone's listening's mind contains something so much more powerful than bullets. Our minds contain ideas, hopes, dreams. You know, wouldn't it be a greater tragedy to die with those things still in your head? So, Tim, if you survive this, it's time to empty a clip.
Absolutely. That, and I love that analogy too. Thinking about I'm not going out with full magazines. They're going to get me. They're going to get me. But I'm going out fighting. Yeah. Expend all those rounds if you can, right? To the extent possible, right? But you have ideas, you got hopes, you got dreams, you have all sorts of things going on in your head. What are we doing just sitting around hanging on to them, for what, a rainy day or something? Like,
if
get
the
them out
ambush
there,
is not going to get you, death eventually will.
Right. That's one thing we cannot escape it. It's coming for all of us. Death is going to get us at one point or another. I don't know if it'll be 5 minutes from now. I don't know if it'll be 50 years from now. I don't know when it'll be, but shit, let's get whatever we got in our heads out there into the world. Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about how that, obviously that shaped your outlook, right, on life going forward. It sucks that it took an ambush situation like that where your life literally is in danger. But, talk us through, like, what did that lead you to? So you finished that deployment and you got home and, like, you probably had some ideas floating around in your magazine that you wanted to get out there, right?
Well, it's funny how it works, but undiagnosed PTSD was the best thing that ever happened to me. Like, a lot of guys might not think they're special, but I can bet you've gone through some shit. All right?
Sure.
And it's our job as men to turn that shit into fertilizer, and it might take you a week, a month, a decade, but that's the amount of time you're going to be able to save other people getting through their shit, turning their shit into fertilizer, because that stuff's there for you to grow,
Mm-hmm.
And what I found was I had this goal, because like yourself, I was shocked at how many veterans were taking their lives to suicide. In Australia, the Australian forces lost around 40 guys to bombs and bullets in Afghanistan, but we've lost 30, 40 times that amount to suicide. It's not something you hear about, but it happens, and most everybody knows somebody. And so I had this goal of saving 40 veteran lives from suicide. I had no idea how to do it. I just knew I had to.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to work the rest of my life to get that done. I'm a pretty determined dude. But that goal was actually achieved within 1 year, because I saw two things that the mainstream system doesn't see, and everyone needs to draw this close to them. What the mainstream system didn't see was that pain, it doesn't matter if it's physical or emotional, it will get to a certain duration or intensity where it transforms from pain. We can handle pain, but it transforms into loneliness.
Okay.
We can't handle loneliness. We can't feel like we're the only ones going through this, because we feel if we share that pain that we're feeling with others, we're going to be making their life harder, and we don't want to make other people's lives harder. And you can pour, and there's, budgets for millions of dollars of resources to be poured into, veterans. But I tell you, it is water off a duck's back if that person is feeling alone and isolated, because they don't know who to trust. If no one's got my back, everything's a threat, because everything is a threat. I'm not sleeping because if I drop my guard for a second, something bad's going to happen. It's going to be my fault. All right. And so breaking the isolation was the first step. The other thing that really worked, and I saw it just worked, and that was getting people out of fatigue. So if you're the only one that's got your back because you're feeling alone and isolated, you're not sleeping. Your fatigue has an accumulation effect. You can keep going, but you're selling off bits of you. You're selling off your ability to laugh. You lose your ability to see something beautiful. You lose your life occurs in two colors, safe and not safe, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, when you reach out for help in that sort of situation, you start realizing that not all healers are born equal. And I want to share something now, and I think a lot of veterans are going to get something from this. So I got out in 2010, but in 2011, I was about to kill a man. Okay, the government wasn't paying me. This would have been murder. So I had reached rock bottom. Family's fallen apart. I'm drinking a lot of alcohol. And then I'm like, what do you do when you're fucked up? Oh, you see a psychologist? And that made no sense to me. Why the fuck do I want to see a guy I've never met before? I don't trust this bloke, but you know what? My family's fallen apart. My wife's at me. So I'll go see this guy. So I'm driving to the appointment and I'm tripping out. Like, why the fuck do I want to share all this stuff? With some stranger. Anyway, I go in there and this guy isn't just incompetent. I can handle incompetence. He was completely apathetic. So I tell him all the shit that I saw in service, all the bullying, all the this. And at the end, he goes, "Oh, do you think it was a problem with your mum and dad?" That whole room froze. Like that tick, tick, tick on the clock went. Chick. And I became very aware of everything in that room. And I saw his glass frame psychology degree. And in my state of disconnect and loneliness, it made a lot of sense to grab that glass frame and feed it down his throat, to remove this motherfucker from the system, because he was supposed to be a healer. And he's not just not healing, he's causing harm. So time to remove this guy. And I get out of my chair to do this, Scotty. And then I feel this hand on my chest and words like red flag. Tim, you are the toughest mofo you know. And you are struggling in a system that doesn't seem to want to help and is so ill-equipped. They don't know what the fuck they're doing themselves.
Right.
And then the question, how many other people are in this same situation right now? And I sat back down in my chair, Scotty, and I saw them. Thousands of people left and right of me, willing me on. There was no end to the depth of them. And they were saying, Tim, if you can find a way forward for you, you can find a way forward for us. And then I'm like, fuck, look, it doesn't matter if it takes me a week, a month, a decade. I've got to find a way forward. I don't know how, but I've got to find a way forward, because I've got a feeling that the amount of time it takes me is the amount of time I'm going to be able to save everyone else.
Sure.
And for those listening, I really want you to draw this to you right now. You might be a veteran. You could be anyone. This is applicable. Everyone's up against something. And the golden question to ask yourself right now is, how many other people do you think are in your situation right now? And again, doesn't matter what it is. You could be a veteran. You could have breast cancer, brain cancer, an emotional problem, a relationship problem. Think about the amount of people that are in your situation right now. And don't kid yourself. Give it a number. Give it a real number. Because those people are out there. And if you find a way forward for you, those people that you possibly haven't even met yet are going to say something like, you know what, I'm so glad that in 2025 you started making decisions to move yourself forward, because that's helped me so much.
Right.
And it was in that moment, Scotty, that's when I broke my own isolation. When I saw all those other people in the same situation as me, And my brain went from, this guy's pissed me off, I want to kill him, because that made sense when I felt alone, isolated, and disassociated, to no, there's a bigger part here. I'm not one in a million.
Hmm.
I'm a million in one. You get
Okay.
that? So it's not just
Yeah,
me getting healing. There's a million of me getting healing. There's a million of me, finding the right healer to heal myself. And it
that's
took
right.
me 6 fucking long years to find a healer that actually did for me in 15 minutes what no other person could have done in 50 years. But there's no way I could have humanly done that for 6 years if I'd not seen those million people left and right of me willing me on.
Right. Right. And that was your motivation. That kept you from feeding that frame down
Yeah.
the down that guy's throat, right? And honestly, looking at your story, what you're talking about here, this is why I do what I do with this show. Th- to have people like you, or any of the other guests that I've had on this show who have gone through some shit, they've gone through these experiences that you know uh, uh, they really had their whole world turned upside down sometimes, right? And in some cases, they may feel like they are the only person on the planet who is going through these issues. To your point, what you just were saying, that's not true. But sometimes in that
Oh yeah.
isolation, in that pain, it makes you feel that way. I'm the only one who's going through a relationship problem. I'm the only one who has a certain kind of cancer. I'm the only one who has PTSD. Whatever it is, that's it. It's me. I'm the only one. And we all know that's not true when you stop and think about it, but it feels that way. And so having people like you, having other people on the show sharing the shit that they went through and saying, "Hey, there's a way out of this.
Yeah.
There is a way for you. Here's the path I took. Maybe your path is going to be a little bit different, but this is the path I took, and maybe you can start walking along this path, and maybe that'll get you out too, and that could help you, right? So you're not alone in any of this. I don't care who you are, and even if you are, let's just say you're this random case where you are the only person on the planet who has this one problem. It doesn't mean that there's not anyone out there who wants to help, right? So, you know, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and do the work, right? To your point, right?
Well, I the way I saw it, because have I mentioned that I'm dyslexic?
Yes,
I see
yes.
things in patterns, right? And the
Okay.
patterns I saw was, and us blokes are a classic example of it. We have unspoken words inside ourselves, inside our hearts, right? And we're just waiting for another man who has walked the same path as us to speak those unspoken words. Because those unspoken words inside of us become rocks around our heart. It stops us feeling. Okay. So I used
Mm,
to drink so much alcohol because I just wanted to feel something. All right.
okay.
Um, and so getting to the point of whatever you're up against, whether you're a veteran or you've got breast cancer, whatever it is, you have now the credentials to speak those unspoken words inside the heart of somebody else. Okay, you have the credentials to break their isolation,
Okay.
because we're all just waiting to hear someone speak it out loud. Now, you and we've got so many pages of weapons that qualified in, right? But what I've discovered, Scotty, the most powerful thing on the planet is not a weapon. It's authentic words spoken, from the deepest parts of us. And if you can have that to another human,
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden you've broken their isolation, and all of it. And what happens is it's like those unspoken words stop you knowing what to do next. When your isolation is broken, it's like this internal golden compass turns on, and people know what they need to do next. But while you're feeling isolated, you don't know what to do, and you're stuck. But speaking authentic words from a genuinely lived experience allows that person to unlock their golden compass. And it's amazing. I always observed how amazingly how little people needed if they got what they really needed. You know,
Sure,
you don't
sure.
need billions of dollars of resources. You just need the right resources applied correctly. And people have 95% of everything they need inside of them, you know,
Yep.
and breaking isolation is the absolute first step. And then getting out of fatigue is the next one. That's when you can start putting energy into the direction you want to go in.
Right.
And
Right. And so
those two,
it's
yeah,
quality over quantity for the resources that you have
yeah,
and
just
the things that,
when you're
whatever your
hurting, you
needs
don't
are,
want
right?
bullshit words. These psychologists, they study for 7 years, but they haven't figured out the fact that the trauma goes deeper than fucking words. You know,
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah. It's you've got a gun that shoots 200 yards and my targets are 1.2 miles away. You know, sure, you're shooting in the right direction, but you're not hitting anything. You know,
Sure.
sure, you've studied
Sure.
7 years to have a qualification that you can shoot this rifle. It only goes 200 meters, mate. Okay, you're doing fuck all and nothing, and they don't get that. You know, the
Yeah.
trauma goes deeper than words. And so,
Yeah. Absolutely.
there's a time and a place, okay? But any decent psychologist will tell you that 95% of their job is building rapport with the client,
Hmm.
okay? Essentially, breaking the isolation, allowing that person to, at a very deep level, not feel like they're alone in this world.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that makes
yeah.
sense. That makes sense. And so then you're saying the next step here, we're talking about fatigue. I got to imagine that's where kind of the sleep work,
Oh, yeah.
comes in,
Well,
right?
well and the thing is, we as a culture almost exonify people that don't sleep very much. And we just think it's normal that
Yeah.
bad sleep is normal, right? Have another coffee. So, my observation is now, let me just start with a question. Think of everything you have in your life, Scotty. Okay. Your
Okay.
work, your play, your relationships, your body, what it can do. The quality of everything in your life is relative to the quality of your sleep.
Okay.
Okay. Sleep is the soil from which everything grows. But just like, the soil, it's unseen. Okay. We get our roots are mostly unseen. It's all under the ground. And our society is largely visual. They want to be able to
Hmm.
see stuff. So a lot of people go, well, if we're going to use the tree analogy, oh, my trunk's not in the right shape. And there's plenty of marketing that'll sell you something to get your trunk in the right shape. Oh, I don't have the fruit in my life that I want. Again, there's plenty of marketing that'll sell you stuff to get your externals looking a certain way. Holy shit, I can't feel good about myself unless I have the right car or the right shoes.
Yeah.
All right. But someone who truly understands what power is and where it comes from goes into the unseen, goes into the soil. Okay. And
Okay.
sleep quality is one of those things that at a very deep level empowers you. And one thing we used to do in the special forces was deliberately target our enemy's sleep because we knew if
Oh,
we could
okay.
deny them sleep for 3 nights, it would mess them up better than a bullet. No shit, right?
Nice.
And I,
Yeah.
and I come back to the Western world and I see that sleep quality is under attack. Our busy Western world is denying us quality sleep, but there's no clear enemy, but there is a tactic at place. So, the officers talk about you weren't I shouldn't say. Were you an officer?
I was
Okay,
not. No, no. I was
I
enlisted.
but without there is that friendly banter between officers and NCOs.
Sure.
But
Sure.
what I'm trying to say is the officers talked about attacking the enemy's center of gravity.
Hmm.
Okay, you find the enemy's center of gravity, whatever it is, you attack it, then they're off-centered, and then they're essentially more worried about what you're doing than what they're doing. And when I get back to the civilian world, my dyslexia has me seeing this pattern that our center of gravity as humans is our sense of self-worth.
Okay.
And if you can attack my sense of self-worth, then you can get me going in any direction you kind of want me to. You know, oh, Tim, you didn't know it, but you got really ugly elbows. Okay, you didn't know it, but everyone's probably noticing it. look, if you just give me $25, I'll give you some ointment to rub on your elbows so your elbows aren't ugly. All right. And that's hilarious, right? But
Sure.
someone criticizes my car, someone criticizes my shoes. You know, it's not just my shoes and my car, something outside of me, it's my sense of self-worth.
Right.
And
Right.
when you see that, whether it's by design or default, our consumer society wants us to do exactly that, to consume. So if you had two groups of people, Scotty, one that was well rested, knew their value, knew how to improve their value, and were sovereign individuals, and then the other ones that weren't sleeping properly, didn't know their value, whatever they had was not enough, and always looked outside of them for external validation. Which group would buy shit they didn't need? Which group would think shit is actually more important than they are?
The people who need that external
Yeah.
validation,
All
right?
right.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
if you want to destabilize somebody, attack them in their sleep. So
Yeah.
all these messages that we get during the daytime, all these imbalances show up at sleep, show
Okay.
up when you're sleeping, right? So it's, and a lot of people talk about sleep, and that really used to piss me off. It's like when I was going through PTSD, would have all these academics coming in talking about PTSD, going, "We found this and blah blah blah." I'm like, so fucking what? I live with this stuff 24/7. Okay, tell me something I don't know. Give me something to use right fucking now. That's what I want. You know.
Yeah. Right.
And so that's why I try to engage with the idea that permanency is one of the legs I stand on to create, we can have a great conversation now, people can get something from it, but who are they tonight? Who are they next week? So permanency of benefit is, to me, determines how powerful you are. So that's why I've created my online resources like Breathwork in Bed. You got a phone, you can download this stuff. It'll ask you two really simple questions: when do you want to sleep, when do you want to wake up? And it falls out of your phone with notifications. You just hit a button to guide you to sleep with peace. And when you
Okay.
wake up at 3 a.m., you've got 1,000 things going through your head. It's pretty goddamn lonely. So it's really handy to have a button there you can push to guide your breath to get back to sleep. And I'm one of those guys that really struggle to get out of bed in the mornings. My whole body feels like lead and I want to puke. All right. But I'm a tough dude. I'll just muscle on. The first 2 hours of my day usually sucks, right? But I found that if I can just give the first 10 minutes of my day to breath work while I haven't even left the bed, breath work, body activation, removing all the stuck energy, then holy shit, I've won the day if I just win the first 10 minutes. And I don't do that naturally. So I've just set it up so it's can be accessed easily, readily, and immediately. So
Okay.
I kind of withdrew from public life about 2 years ago, Scotty. I got a letter from a very high-ranking Army officer. I'd just done a workshop out on the local Army base here in Brisbane, and he didn't attend, but he sent me this email saying all his corporals and sergeants were coming up to him afterwards saying that was the first good night's sleep they had in up to 5 years. And he thought it was awesome, but I'm like, no, it's terrible. They haven't slept in 5 years.
Yeah. Right. Right.
But what he said next had me withdraw from public life. He said, okay, it was good when you were there, but have you got anything the guys can use when you're not there? I'm like, holy shit, I am not permanent. I'm powerful and
Sure.
positive. I'm the circus that comes to town and it's good, but I'm not. If I'm really about adding value to them, I have to have it permanent. I've got to give them something a week later, a year later, a decade later. So that's why I've sort of circulated back into public life with this tool that I can't just go blah, blah, blah. This is a good conversation. Well, here's something you can use right fucking now, and,
Yep.
so I got it lost in the passion of it, but I think you're picking up what I'm putting down.
Yeah, I am. And you're right, because yeah, sure, you can go do some motivational speaking. You can go, instruct them how to do this, for right now. But what about next week, and or a month from now, or a year from now? What about after they, we've all been to different motivational speakers, or
Yep.
see other people speak, and over time, you start to forget what the people say. Maybe you went to, no fault of the speaker. That they may be incredible speakers, but you forget some of the details, and so maybe you're not going to be doing this as well next week or a month from now or a year from now even. Um, you know, Perhaps maybe it becomes a habit and you're good to go. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's not one of those types of things. And maybe you do need to have a little bit of help. We've all had restless nights. We wake up at 2 a.m. or whatever, and we need to figure out how to get back to sleep. I know I've had that where I'm looking at the clock and I'm wide awake and it's 2 o'clock.
Yep.
And I was like, well, this is too damn early. I cannot be getting up at this time. How do I get back to sleep? It'd be great to have, some way to kind of guide me back to sleep and
Scotty, I can't do what you do or what the people listening can do, but if I can improve your sleep, then you're going to do what you do even better. All right.
Right.
Even if I'm being completely selfish, in Afghanistan, I realized that it makes a lot of sense for me to have the people around me functioning optimally, because who do I want around me when good times turn bad?
Right.
So I'm pretty thick-skinned. So I sort of had impressed on me the interconnected nature of us humans,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't like the saying, we're all connected. The way I kind of see it is we're all living on the same grid, right? And
Okay.
we're actually feeling each other more than we'd admit. And that becomes really obvious when someone you care about gets physically removed from the grid, okay? When someone you care about dies. Because then you realize those golden invisible threads that you were feeling that person through, you feel them when they get severed.
Sure. Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so my
Yeah. You notice the absence
yes.
more than the presence, right?
So my sort of thing, Scotty, is just like if someone's physically removed and you feel it, if someone's physically improved, that benefits you as well.
Yeah. Sure.
So my question is, if the worst thing we could do to the enemy was deny them sleep, I think the best thing you could do for someone you care about is improve their sleep.
Sure.
You know?
Sure. Yeah. And so it's almost like a ripple effect that takes place where if you can help one person in your circle, in your life that's connected to you somehow, with an improvement in their sleep, they get other areas of their life gets better. Just like you said, whatever it is that they do will get better just because of that improved sleep. So they become a better version of themselves, and they're connected to you, and they're going to help you become a better version of yourself and other people who are around them. It's kind of like rising tides.
Oh yeah, and
raise all ships, right?
people think, oh, that's maybe woo woo, and I'm like, okay, let's go to the opposite end of it.
Sure.
We all know some asshole that's taken from us. All right, that shit in your head, that's real. Okay. So
Yeah.
conversely, when you've got someone in your head that's well rested, committed to who they're being as a person, that benefits you as well. So I
Yeah.
sometimes
Right.
highlight the negative to highlight the positive. And
Mm-hmm.
if you don't take the time to win the first 10 minutes of your day to connect to yourself powerfully, because those powerful inner connections usually lead to powerful external connections. All right.
Sure.
When I'm fully charged up inside myself, I've got less expectation on others. As in, if I'm not fully charged up, I expect others to act a certain way. I expect others to be a certain way. I
Right.
haven't given myself energy and I still need it, so I'm going to try and take it from others. And then you wonder why there's so many assholes in the world, because, they need energy. They haven't generated it themselves, but they still need it, so they take it from others.
Yeah. Right. Right. And one of the things I want to go back just a bit. One of the things that you were talking about when you were involved in that ambush, and you just kind of slowed down, and you were able to start to think clearly about the range of an RPG, and how far away you need to be from certain areas, and where you need to be positioned, and everything just kind of slowed down and became a lot more clear in that moment. I'm sure all of those thought processes took place in a matter of seconds, but I mean, even just in the amount of time that it took you to describe that in words right now on this show, I don't even know how long that took, but it was way longer than however long it took in your brain in that moment.
Mm.
It was probably maybe even a second, a fraction of a second even. It was just a thing that occurred to you, and now you everything just kind of slowed down and you were able to kind of figure out what is going on around me. You can't do that type of thinking, that level of thinking, when you're completely exhausted, when you've had no good sleep.
Yeah.
Right. And to your point, what you're just saying, starting your day off, getting, connected with yourself and all that, that allows you to have that kind of clarity going out throughout your day. Whether it's driving to work, whether it's, having a conversation with, a family member or whoever, you can kind of now be a little more perceptive and take in things that you might have missed when you're in that daze because you need to get your coffee and you need to,
Yeah.
that's what your focus is.
You don't have enough
right?
energy, consciously or not. We make it all about us.
Yeah,
and,
right.
and I know I always notice how I react in traffic. That's always a good one of how energized and powerful I am. Because I don't think this is said out loud enough, and this is the advice I give to my son. A man's happiness and generosity is relative to how powerful he feels.
Okay.
Okay, and that power starts with us. It starts with our body. So I tell my son, you have to access your body, so you can be happy and you can be generous. Because and I would add one more thing to that, to the level to which we can relax is to the level of how powerful we feel. Because if you want to see an unhappy, stingy guy that can't relax, they're not feeling powerful.
No.
You know what I mean? So within that power, and I think of power and performance like a pyramid. Okay, most veterans, especially, we're used to the top of the pyramid, kicking ass, hitting targets, making bank, doing all these things at the top of the pyramid. But what they don't show you in military training is the bottom of the pyramid. Okay, the rest, recovery, healing art forms, or accessing what they technically call your PNS, parasympathetic nervous system, your brake, the thing to slow you down. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And breath work allows you to go from the top of the pyramid into the rest, recovery, healing art forms. And done right, you can slingshot. You push hard into your performance, you go down into your rest. That slingshots you back up and you go down. You ebb and you flow between those two. But too often as blokes, we got medals for, eating shit every day and not flinching. And, there is a time and a place to muscle up and get the job done. I think this country was made great from that. But if we don't give ourselves the opportunity to go to the bottom of the pyramid to develop the rest, recovery, healing art forms, there's a limited time you have at the top. And you start saying things like, oh, my best years are behind me. Okay?
Right.
Because if you work the bottom of the pyramid, you don't age like other people age. Okay?
Right. Yeah.
And so, yes, it's about performance, but it's sometimes hard for guys to relax and slow down, because we tell ourselves if we're doing nothing, we're doing nothing. Especially if I've got my sense of self-worth attached to what I do for a job or what I do for others.
That's right.
You start feeling like you're worthless when you're doing nothing. And the only way I've been able to get my head around that, Scotty, is that I have one day specifically dedicated to be free of all electronics, free of any work, sugar, or even any fast movements. I deliberately walk and move slowly. It's fucking nuts for the first 30 minutes, half hour, but then your body just drops into it, right? It's called, the buzzword these days is a dopamine detox. Okay. And the only way I'm able to drop into that is I like hitting targets, right? But think of a bow and arrow. If I want to hit that target with my arrow, the first thing I need to do is the arrow goes away from the target. It goes in the opposite direction. And as we're going in the opposite direction, we're creating momentum. So on my days off, when I tell myself, I want to go do something, no, this is the bow going back so I can make an impact for the rest of the week. That
Right.
makes sense?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So you can hit your targets
Yeah.
for that week, right? You have probably goals, or you have meetings, appointments. You have things that you need to do. Whatever it is that's on your schedule for the week. But if you're not rested and recharged and energized to get those things done, you're going to start missing targets, and you're not going to do the things that you eventually need to do,
Yeah. And
right?
in our
So
confusion, we get told, oh, we just got to use more grit, try harder,
yeah,
as opposed to stop, rest, have I call it a bow day, let go away from everything you think you want to go towards, and you'll be surprised just how much of more of an impact you can make
yeah, right.
when you have that rest. Otherwise, your world starts getting much smaller, and
Mm-hmm.
then that's only sustainable for so long.
That's
Um,
right.
and I do want to speak to something here. Um, and not many people talk about this. It's not particularly popular, but it's a veteran podcast and it's a real issue to veterans. I have discovered the pathway into suicide.
Okay.
So I mentioned earlier how pain doesn't matter, it's physical or emotional. It'll get to a certain duration or intensity and it transforms into loneliness. And that might take a year, 18, 25 years, however long it takes. But then the person starts looking around and saying, what do I know right now? I can see that I'm in pain. And I can see, if I'm being honest, I'm causing pain to others.
Mm-hmm.
And if I look into my future, I can't see that changing. And that's an honest opinion, because if you've got fuck all energy in this moment, you look into the future and you can't see anything being different. And then, and this is where it gets dangerous, people start saying something like, you know what? This is a great idea. I'm going to end the pain. I'm going to end the pain to me. I'm going to end the pain to you. I'm going to be doing everyone a favor by removing myself and ending the pain. And, you know, these conversations I've had with veterans, I said, look, if you're committed to killing yourself, I can't stop you, but know this. If you're doing it for the reason of ending the pain, all you're going to do is multiply by about 1,000 the amount of pain for everyone who knows you. Everyone who knows you, you're going to amplify that pain. So don't think for a goddamn second that you removing yourself is going to be doing anyone any favors.
That's right.
And obviously, building up from that point, because otherwise, yeah, I've seen that pattern happen again and again. They actually see it as a favor they're doing others, because all they know is pain and all they can see is their future of pain. And I hope the words that I'm speaking right now is speaking into the hearts of those in that space. And again, really ask this question. It's the golden question. How many other people are in your situation right now? Because you are now fully qualified to break their isolation. No one else can say what you say to that person, because you've actually been in that place. It's not what you do that gives us value to others. It's what we've come through.
Yeah. Uh, exactly. And with, again, with this show, that's what I want to do. I want to have people who have been through those things to be able to share that with other people, so that they see they're not alone. Maybe it's just one other person, but hey, I'm not alone. Right? There's the other person who's gone through this, and they have sort of laid out a roadmap.
Mm.
How do they get through it? Okay, well, now I got a little bit of hope. Now maybe there was no light at the end of the tunnel for me, and I'm just seeing darkness. Now I got a little glimpse of that light,
Yeah.
and maybe it's still far away, right? Because there might be a lot of work to do, but it gives you a little bit of hope.
Well,
And yeah,
it pays to note, and this was very sobering to me, that I don't have the privilege of taking my unresolved shit into the grave. Okay. It doesn't die with me. I pay that
Right.
forward to my kids. I pay that
Yeah.
forward to
Right.
everyone who meets me. Okay. And if, and so my thoughts are, if it doesn't die with me, okay, I'm going to be creating, an intergenerational trauma if I don't deal with my trauma in my lifetime.
Hmm.
And so, that in and of itself is one way to break the isolation and take the responsibility, saying, it has to be me, because if I don't deal with it myself, I can't take it to my grave. It's still going forward. And I want my future generations to be living as free as possible. And as veterans, what the fuck were we fighting for,
Yeah. Right. Right. Exactly. You know, I've used an analogy before. I think on this show where, it's kind of like being a rock or a boulder in a stream, where the water was going in one direction all along, but sometimes you got to just drop that rock in there and send it off into a different direction, because that whatever direction it was going in, just things weren't working, things weren't right. You got to move it into a different direction, and even if it means that there's other stuff down in that direction that you were going, maybe it means you gotta, you know, let go of something. Maybe it means that you gotta improve something. Maybe it means that something else is it's a change. Really, is what it is. It's changing course, and you're moving in a different direction now because whatever you were doing wasn't working. And so, the definition of insanity is if you keep doing the same thing over and over again,
Mm.
expecting a different result, you're cuckoo.
Oh yeah.
There's nothing going on right up there. But so you got to change something, and maybe a little thing, or maybe a big thing. Everybody's going to be different, but you got to change something, and take it one step at a time, and see where that takes you, and how that gets you to a better place.
Oh, I
And
love that, Scotty. I love that, because what you're
yeah,
talking about there is, as veterans, we've all had to show courage at some point, right?
sure,
But doing what you've always done, it takes a lot of courage to go into the unfamiliar. Okay. It takes a lot of courage for me to do something I don't normally do. And that's talk to
right,
somebody about some shit that's going on.
right,
It takes a lot of courage for me to admit that what I'm doing ain't fucking working. I can kid myself, but to be honest, I said I was fine. I just had to drink half a carton of grog before I spoke to my then wife. And I call her my
right,
then wife, not my ex wife, because I stand for a positive future.
sure,
Um, and, I want to, in the spirit of permanency, I can talk about anything you like, Scotty, but can we allow a little bit of time at the end so I can show the listeners something that they can access immediately through their breath to relax their body and mind. I want to gift them
yeah.
something that they can use. So like I said, we can
Yeah, if
talk
you
about
could do that now,
now.
yeah,
I mean,
if you could do that now, that would be wonderful,
yeah,
and
no
then
problem at all.
we could take it from there. Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah,
I'm gonna show you how to completely relax your body in 3 breaths.
okay,
Okay. Now, the thing about breath work, it's easy, but because we've been doing it our whole lives, we're doing it a certain way. So if you've like, imagine if you've been to the gym and all you've done for a bicep curl is just like 2 centimeters of movement, and that's been your whole experience of it. Okay,
right,
it would blow your mind if you could actually do the full range of movement. Okay, um, so it is with breath work. I'm always amazed at how many professional athletes don't know how to breathe properly. So I'm just gonna spend a little bit of time and use all my power to show you how to breathe correctly. All right. Now the only caveat to this is that you need to be either seated, laying down in a comfortable position. You're not driving. You're not cutting up carrots, because you need to be allowing your breath to do what it does. Okay. So, and I always ask, can you give yourself permission to let your breath do what it does, and let this goodness in? Okay. Because I don't see myself as a breathwork coach. I see myself as someone who introduces you to the love of your life, because you're going to start a relationship here with with these lungs, because you're going to discover that these aren't just lungs. They're a medicine cabinet with a lot of different shelves. Okay? You breathe a certain way, you elicit a certain response. Or some people might even say it like a magic potion cupboard, because what this does goes beyond words, goes beyond thinking. Okay, but I'm just going to show you something now, which is purely there for you to physically reset your body and mind within 3 breaths.
Okay.
So, Scotty, all I'm going to get you to do is just breathe in and breathe out. Great.
Okay.
So, what we're going to do now is when we breathe in, we're going to breathe in again and again and again and again. Okay?
Okay.
So, breathe in, and then breathe in again and again and again and again. Got it. Let that go. Now, did you notice the bit of extra space in your top third of your lungs when you breathe in again and again? Great. Okay. So for the sake of giving that a name, we're going to call your first inhale your primary inhale, and your secondary inhale your secondary inhale. Okay? Primary,
Simple.
secondary.
Okay.
All right? Military people get this.
You got to break it down in simple terms. We're good.
Oh yeah, but yeah, you. I mean, how old are you, Scotty? Right?
42.
42.
Yeah.
So for 42 years, you've got a habit. All right. So for us to break this habit, it's going to take a little bit of coaching. So give yourself permission just to let this be what it is. There's no right or wrong way to do it. The drill sergeant's not going to berate you here. All right. So just try and have as much fun with this as possible. So let's smooth this out. So let's breathe in your primary and then into your secondary, nice and smooth. So in, breathe in, and then let that go. All right. Cool. Now, what nobody knows is that in our thumbs and fingers, if we pinch them together as hard as possible, that becomes a turbo boost button for our secondary inhale. So what we're going to do is we're going to breathe into our primary inhale, and as we hit the secondary, we're going to hit those turbo buttons. We're going to pinch our thumb into our 2 fingers as hard as we can, and notice how that gives us a bit of a turbo boost for our secondary inhale.
Okay.
So you got your power buttons ready there, Scotty?
Yep.
And everyone at home, we're just going to breathe in, then we're going to hit our fingers and pinch them together and get that secondary inhale even more powered up. Ready?
Okay.
Breathing in, hit your power buttons, and just let that go.
That's bizarre.
Isn't
oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Who knew? We all have bodies, but we don't know what the fuck they do.
I had this button here this whole 42 years.
Whole time, your whole life. You didn't know, all right? Well, it's got to get even better, Scotty. And I love this. And what I love about breathwork is people just start laughing and smiling, all right? Because up in your top third, that's where a lot of tension is held. You don't even know it, right? Because look at my posture here. I'm side on. When I've got shit in my head, I hunch over. Okay?
Yeah, right.
So I'm holding tension here. But when I breathe and open up, I'm dispelling the tension. Then I start putting this stupid smile on my face, right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to play with that. We're going to breathe in and notice these power buttons that you never knew you had powering up this secondary inhale. So let's just take 2 breaths in your own time. I encourage people listening just to breathe in, hit those power buttons and go, oh my gosh, I just discovered something. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Let's go. Breathing in. And really lengthen it in like, oh my gosh, I never knew I had that space. Breathing in, power buttons. Awesome, letting it out. All right. So we're going to juice your secondary inhale up even more. So think of your power buttons, your 2 power buttons and your chin like a triangle. Okay, this is going to become a power triangle. So what we're going to do is as we hit our secondary inhale, we're going to stretch our chin up to the ceiling and kind of lean back, all right? Leaning back almost kind of like you're limboing. So we're hitting our power buttons, pulling them back, raising our chin up and opening up everything on the front of us.
Okay.
So chin to the ceiling, opening up like so. You clear with that?
I think so. Yep.
So let's start with exhaling, blow it all out. Everyone listening, blow it all out. With your power buttons ready, breathe in. Hit your power buttons, raise your chin, raise your chest, open, open, open. Now hold that and wriggle your shoulders. Wriggle, wriggle, wriggle. Allow that space to open up. Allow that space to open up and let it out with a sigh. Ah.
Holy shit. I really hope people are doing this right now.
Oh, yeah.
Like who are listening to this. I really hope they're following along. If not, rewind this, go back, do it again.
Yeah. We're getting high in our own supply. But you know what? We're only halfway through this. Okay. And just for fun, we want to do that one more time so we can knock it home. All right. So have your power buttons ready, have your chin. Okay. And when I prompt at the end, I want a deliberately loud sigh, like a ah. Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right. So blow it all the way out, everybody. Out, out, out. Have your power buttons ready. Breathing in. Hit your power buttons. Raise your chin. Raise your chest. In. Hold it. Wriggle your shoulders. Wriggle your shoulders. Open up that space. And with a really big sigh, let it out.
Okay. Wow.
All right. Okay. So we are halfway through this. Okay. So just like, when we're feeling like shit, we rolled our shoulders forward. Things are impossible in this space. But when we breathe into that secondary inhale, things become possible. So what I call this secondary inhale is I call this the breath of possibility. Okay? So you don't have to be as dramatic as this in public, but these two little turbo buttons, they're the circuit breaker for the shit in your head. All right. So when I'm in public and I got shit in my head, I'll hit these power buttons and deliberately force air into that top third of my lungs. And all of a sudden, what is impossible becomes possible. And I break the circuit of shit that's going around in my head. You got that?
Sure.
So whenever you go forward from here, notice these fingers, they're your circuit breakers that can establish the level of normal that you want in your life. Okay. So breath of possibility is what we're tapping into right now. Now, you're doing really well, by the way. When I do workshops, I take up to an hour to teach people this. So you're doing really good. Let's divide our lungs into thirds. Your top third, your middle, and your lower.
Okay.
All right. Your lower is where your belly button is.
Sure.
And your top third is your breath of possibility. And your lower third down by your belly button is your breath of peace. All right. Now, the reason why breath work is so powerful is if you think of us as evolved living organisms, before we were sentient, before we were putting paintings on rock walls, we were breathing. Okay. Before we were speaking, we were breathing. So that deep ancient wiring lives inside of us and it outranks the shit that's in your head. All right? This bolt-on sentience, it's a relative newcomer to our evolution, is outranked by our breath.
Okay.
And if you don't believe me, when I was a professional fighter, I fought a lot of guys that were more skilled than me, black belts in what they were doing. But I noticed if I attacked their lungs, that outranked their thinking mind. I take away their breath, I can roll them up. Okay, so there's something very tactile and deep when we access our breath. And that's why I'm such a fan of it. Okay, you don't hear about this stuff because no one's making money from it. All right, it basically makes you become a sovereign individual. You don't need that crap that you think you need when you can actually see the value and develop the value and nourish this stuff that's underneath your own skin. And the easiest gateway to that is your breath. And that's why I'm taking my time to sort of break this down so you can actually see all the benefits. It's not just a thing. It's fucking everything,
Okay.
So we're going to do that same thing again, where we raise up, open everything up. We're going to hold it, but then we're going to allow ourselves to collapse forward. So we're going from an open position to letting your head go forward. And we're going to move that air from our upper third, middle third, down low. We're almost going to sort of roll ourselves like a toothpaste tube that you're rolling it all down to your belly. Okay. You're going to push it down as low as it can go. Your hands are going to be on your belly, and we're going to pressurize that, and we're going to let it out. You know, like you got that pressure cooker on the stove and it's going to let the pressure out.
Sure.
That's what we're going to do with our mouths. We're going to have
Okay.
that deep breath in. We're going to pressurize it down low, and we're going to let it out super slow with a sounding through our mouth.
Okay.
Okay, and we're going to do that 3 times, because it's usually the third time people sort of figure out, because this is a new movement. Again,
Okay.
there's no wrong way to do this. Just rewind this as many times as possible, because if you can have this as a muscle memory, you're going to be essentially able to hit a self-medicate button. Okay, when I was in my pill taking days, I didn't just have pills in the medicine cabinet. I had it in the food cabinet, the fruit bowl, in my car, all these different places, because I was always trying to self-medicate. So when people ask me how much you should breathe or do breath work, I'm like, whenever you need it, you can self-medicate. And if this becomes your go-to, then this is, again, a step towards you becoming a sovereign individual. You know what I mean?
Excellent. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I've spoken enough. Let's take this on the track. Let's take this on the track. So I'll be coaching you through this. Have your power buttons ready. Have your chin ready. Firstly, blow everything out. Out. Now breathing in, hit your power buttons, raise your chin, raise your chest, lengthen the inhale. In. Hold that. Wriggle your shoulders, let your head collapse forward, Feel the air going down from your upper, middle. Put your hands on your belly, feel it down low. Push that balloon down low. I encourage you just to let your head hang down, like your head is down beneath you towards your knees. Pressurize it, let out a tss, as slow as you can. Let it out. Keep letting it out. And as you let it out, allow your body to collapse like an inflatable toy. All the tension is leaving your body like a deflating toy. Everything's leaving.
And I'm back.
And let's do that 2 more times.
All right.
Breathing in, hit your power buttons. Open up. Feels really good to open up. Wriggle the shoulders. Open up that heart space. And then hold it. Let your head collapse forward. Put your hands on your belly. Feel it all going to your belly. Let your head fall down. Let it out super slow. And as that air leaves your body, picture your body, all the tension just falling away, deflating all the tension, your shoulders, the top of your head, your face, your arms. Everything's just falling away. And then when you're ready, let's take another deep breath in. Hit your power buttons, in. Hold it. Feel how good it is to wriggle those shoulders, open up that chest. And then in the most relaxed way, hold your breath, let everything just fall forward, falling forward. I encourage you to close your eyes, hands on your belly, let your head fall forward, And as you let out the tss, let all the tension from your shoulders just drop out. Let all the tension from your spine just drop out. Your lower back, your arms, your face. And just let it all stay there. And I encourage you to just close your eyes for a second. And just notice how when you breathe now, you've got a longer range of movement in your breath. And I encourage you, with all your muscles, allow the chair you're sitting in to support your weight. The chair was built to hold you. Allow your muscles to feel supported by that wonderful chair. Allow yourself to just sort of melt into the chair. So often in our tension, we don't allow ourselves to feel supported. It's like our own tension is our own way of trying to hold us, but it doesn't work like that. It's only when we release that tension that we can feel truly held, truly supported, which is what that chair is doing for you right now. It's so wonderful to feel supported, to feel relaxed, and to know that the gateway to this wonderful feeling is simple as breathing.
That's an incredible feeling. It's so weird how that happens, but just taking those few short breaths, three breaths, and you could feel like tension in the shoulders, in the chest and everything. Everything's just kind of relaxed. And, I've gone through, I don't even know how many different, meditation and, breathing, they kind of guided, breathing type things. And I don't know, some of them are okay, I guess, they, they help a little, but it's not something, like this, it broke it down in a simple way. I don't care if it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm pretty sure I can remember how to breathe 3 times, in the manner that you just described. And I don't need to, you know, get myself all worked up like, oh, am I doing it right or whatever. It's pretty simple. And like at the end of it, I'm pretty relaxed. I don't know if anyone who's watching the video of this, I don't know if they noticed or not, but I
Oh,
kind of
you look
yawned
different.
after.
Yeah, yeah.
I yawned after I
Yeah.
after I did this, and I was like, oh shit, it's not because the conversation's boring or anything. I'm relaxed. Um, and so it's pretty incredible. So
Can I ask you something, Scotty?
yeah, sure.
What you experience and what the potential audience experience goes beyond words. It's really hard to explain this to somebody else who hasn't experienced this. This is the piece that transcends human understanding. And breath is one of those things that can take you there with such immediacy. And this is what nobody tells you. When you find the right healer, healing takes far less time than you think. But finding the right healer, that's what takes the time. And just as easily as I showed you this, and I encourage people to keep this episode, in a place they can readily access,
Yeah.
because if this has worked for you and if this has relaxed you, how many other people do you know that you could just as easily show? And
Mm-hmm.
you could be the one that brings them into that wonderful, peaceful place where they actually get to access the higher thinking. I can't tell you how many pills I used to take to have this feeling, how much alcohol I used to have to drink to have this feeling, because I
Right.
didn't know that all this stuff was actually inside of me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this is the
Yeah.
message we need to sort of push out there, because it's up to authentic individuals like us to share it, to connect people into that power. Because when you're connected into that power, there's no resales. Okay, they've got it. They've got the love of their
Yeah.
life. And yeah,
Yeah.
I've got an app. You could type in breathwork in bed in your phone and have that as a guided practice, and it's really good to have that discipline. But
Yep.
you've got
Yep.
something now. You've got a tool in your belt that you can. I encourage you to master it for yourself, to have that circuit breaker as you're walking around the place,
Mm-hmm.
and then show other people. If someone's freaking the fuck out, stop with them and do that little thing with them and watch the change.
Yeah. Right. It it's incredible, and it's one of those things where I'm going to tell other people about this. Like this is one of those things you got to kind of spread out. It's not one of those secrets you want to keep to yourself, right? Especially in a family setting when you might have somebody who's freaking out about something, about a work deadline, or some other issues that they got going on or whatever. It's like, hey, you can kind of relax a little bit and kind of calm down, and of course, you don't want to say it that way because that would totally
No, you just
derail the whole
just
conversation.
do
Hey,
me a
just
favor.
calm down, right?
Just breathe in and breathe in again.
Yeah,
Breathe in and squeeze your fingers.
right.
And then hold it, wriggle it. Okay, because the physiologically, what happens is proper breathing gives you proper alignment. Okay, and if you think of our power system like a bunch of circuits, our
Sure.
nerves are like like a garden hose. And if you pinch a garden hose, you restrict the amount of water that comes out. Our
Right.
nerves, our power systems like that. So when we're hunched over, we're literally choking out our power system. So when we
Yeah.
breathe in and open everything up, we allow it to flow correctly. And when I was working with the British Special Forces, they showed that every degree of cant, every degree of hip cant, the degree of their hips that it would reduce power and increase injuries
Yes.
simply by structural alignment. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so understand that these little circuit breakers that we do, it's beyond just mental. It is integrating so many different systems to make you the powerful individual that you're built to be. And I've got to share this because this is what makes me super excited. Improving sleep is the first step. Okay.
Okay.
Everyone needs to be met where they are and get out of fatigue. But if you go off the idea that sleep is the soil from which everything grows, the thing that makes me super excited, Scotty, isn't just improving people's sleep. Inside of people, they have seeds of greatness, seeds of uniqueness laying dormant, waiting for the right conditions. So when you start getting out of fatigue, all those seeds of greatness about you, they flourish.
Right.
So there is an accumulation effect of benefit of guarding your sleep, because again, if we don't grow those seeds of greatness in our lifetime, we just pass it forward to our kids to sort out. You know what I
Sure.
mean? So
Sure.
this is just sort of the call to action I have for people right now, is to improve your soil and watch what happens. Improve the soil of those around you and watch what happens in their life. That's the shit that gets me excited.
Yeah, absolutely. And any parent who's out there is going to probably agree with this statement that they want better for their kids than what they had for themselves. But imagine if you raise that bar for yourself, and now your bar is higher. That means your kid's bar is going to be higher,
Mm.
right? If that's what you're offering to them is something better than what you had, then that bar, raising your bar, makes their bar get higher, and they just get that much better. And then to your point, that has that effect of affecting everybody else. It's going to affect your grandkids. It's going to affect your great grandkids. Because that bar has already been raised up higher, and so,
Yeah.
gosh, this has so many implications. There's so many benefits for people. Um, you mentioned the app. People can obviously
Oh,
go
look,
get it. Breathwork in bed,
if
right?
you just go into your phone, look up 3 words, breathwork, 1 word, in bed, it'll ask
Yep.
you 2 simple questions: when you want to sleep, when you want to wake up. We take care of the rest. There is a
Awesome.
bunch of bonus features in there which I won't go into now, but
Sure.
if just watch what happens when you start going to sleep with peace and getting out of bed with power, winning the first 10 minutes of the day. All right.
Yeah.
Uh, Connecting to yourself powerfully first, and then experiencing the joy of what it is to connect to others powerfully, because I think that's what true human joy is. Being generous with others out of your abundance. So I don't give of myself anymore, I give of my abundance. Because if I
Okay.
know, if I wake up and I'm adequate, if I'm at 100% and I have to give, fucking Scotty 10%, then I'm down to 90%, and Scotty, you better do something with that 10%, right? So
Sure.
so
Right.
that's why I was sincere when I've spent the last 3 hours investing in myself so I can be completely abundant. So if I've got 500%, I can give away 20% a day. People can love it, hate it, tell me to fuck off. It doesn't matter. I'm in touch with something so much more powerful than what can be taken.
Yeah. Right.
And we've all been taken from, but if we look at what's been taken, oh shit, someone took 25 cents from me. I'll forget that I can create $1 million tomorrow. Me chasing that 25 cents stops me living as an energetic millionaire.
Yeah. Right.
You know what
Right.
I mean?
Right. Yeah. It's like, if somebody messes up the 5 minutes of your day, right? Are you gonna blow the rest of your day being pissed off at that person, angry, just yelling at your wife, and coming home and making a just a bad situation worse? Or are you just gonna be like, all right, man, that sucks, but whatever, let's move on, and yeah, sure, deal with the situation if it needs dealing with, but don't let it ruin the rest of your day, your
Yeah,
week, your
we
month.
can't stop people taking from us. If we've
Yeah,
tried, we end up just becoming these really defensive assholes. But
sure,
what they can't stop is us reinvesting in ourselves. And I really need
sure.
to share something right now. So that particular sergeant I was talking about. I was going through that much shit. I'm like, you know what? If I killed this guy, I'd be getting less time in prison than the pain I've been suffering. Okay.
Yeah, right,
Um,
right.
and again, isolated thinking, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the thing and it was such a gift receiving that abuse, because what that taught me was that when people take from me, it's only because they're a zero.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right. and
They need something
and
from
those
you.
zeros get really good at manipulating others. And if you look at the graph of potential, right, their potential is limited to the amount of victims they can find. Okay,
Sure. Yeah.
but my potential is not limited. So if I just invest in me, invest in me, invest in me, invest in me, you know, all of a sudden there's a great saying like, God, make my enemies dust beneath my feet. As in,
Okay.
you become so big that they become so small. And so
Yeah.
when I'm talking with high school students, I say, we've all been taken from, but don't let it stop you tapping into this very unique human skill that we have. We've got the ability to improve ourselves, to develop ourselves. And I show them a picture of a Venus flytrap, and I say, listen, and they're quite a small plant, these Venus flytraps, right? I say, look, it's a small plant, but to a fly, this Venus flytrap is terrifying, right?
Sure.
But
Yeah.
if this fly had our unique human ability to develop itself, to make it bigger, to invest in itself, the fly could turn into a bird. The bird could turn into a cat. The cat could turn into a lion. Okay. And imagine that lion walking along, looking at that Venus flytrap. It would be like laughing at itself that it ever took that as a serious threat.
Sure.
So
Sure.
anyone that takes from you, just say, you're a Venus flytrap in the making. I'm going to thank you for scaring the shit out of me and taking from me, because now I'm becoming the lion.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I lost a lot of my
The,
life trying to get back what was taken from me, but
yep.
it was there to teach me how to essentially become the best version of myself.
Yeah. And the more you invest in yourself, so you're talking about, if you're at 500%, you can give away 20%, and that's no big deal to you. And you still have plenty left over for yourself, for others, for everything, right? But you are still at 100%. And, uh, and so if somebody comes around and tries to take from you and tries to ruin your day, well, okay, well, that's going to roll off of you pretty easily because you have so much in abundance, right? It's like if I was to, steal $5 from Bill Gates, do you think he's ever going to notice?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But if Bill Gates only had $6 and you took 5, that would be a massive withdrawal.
It would be a
Yeah.
massive problem,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
for him. Yeah, and he would definitely notice, and he'd be coming after me, right?
Yeah.
But those are that's what you're trying to say is
Yeah.
like you
Yeah.
you want to build that equity in yourself so that you have so much that $5 isn't going to bother you.
Yeah. Well
Someone
said,
comes
Scotty.
around and
Well
that.
said.
Yeah, exactly. And just going back to the breath work, you're talking about how we've been doing this our whole lives. Everybody,
Yeah.
from the moment we're born to the moment we die, we're breathing. And I had this conversation with my son a little while ago. He's a pitcher in baseball,
Yep.
and he was doing this nasty thing where he was throwing this sidearm thing, right? And it was just not the right form, and he wasn't getting the ball over the plate the right way, right? And he'd get lucky every once in a while and get it over the plate, but it just wasn't the right form. And he goes, I don't know what the problem is. I'm out there practicing. I'm practicing. I go, yeah, but you're practicing it the wrong way, and so you're getting really good at doing it the wrong way. And you're just gonna get in that habit and that routine of doing it the wrong way over and over and over again. That's what just feels natural, and doing it the right way is what's gonna feel unnatural, and you're gonna shy away from it. You're not gonna want to do that, right? So to your point, if we're practicing this time and time again, and we're becoming we're making a habit out of breathing the right way, getting those full breaths in our lungs and filling it up the top third and then releasing it the right way, all that stuff, the wiggling and all of that stuff, getting all that stuff the right way, we start to incorporate that into our daily practice. How much better are we going to be? Yeah, sure, today, but what are we going to look like a year from now, right?
You're absolutely right. And to highlight the benefits of proper breathing, and again, it goes beyond words, it's the piece that transcends human understanding. I want to highlight the negative effect. Okay, so if you saw someone on the street or anyone going, shallow chest breathing,
Sure,
they're freaking out. They're in fight or flight. Something
right.
bad's going to happen. But if you don't take those conscious full breaths and you're shallow breathing, you're feeding a signal to your system that I'm in fight or flight. I can't
Yeah.
actually relax, drop down into my, deep, peaceful state. So shallow breathing, chest breathing, basically it stops you being the person you're born to be, and it will pretty much put you into an early grave.
Yeah.
There's not a system in your there's not a function in your bodily system that isn't impacted by poor breathing. Just like, and I do want to deliberately kind of scare people here, but to highlight that when you breathe properly, every goddamn thing in your system is benefited. People ask me, why do you do 2 hours of breath work a day? And I'm like, if you had something that benefited everything in your body, everything in your mind, made you live longer, made you feel younger, made you work more secure, made your relationships better, and it was free,
Yeah. Right.
would
It's
you do it?
breathing.
But
Yeah.
I,
Right.
I, I do want to highlight the negative to highlight the positive, because um, I'll leave it with this. I think to move forward, you need to embrace both. All
Uh-huh.
right. They did this fantastic experiment once where they had this mouse. It had like a little spring on its tail to measure how many newtons of force it went towards the cheese. So something it wanted. And it was like 300 neutrons, whatever it was. But then they put in the smell of a cat. All right. And then it went up to like 1200. All right.
Okay.
So we talk about integrating the shadow. So, I had a lot of things when I was doing my special forces selection. I was 30 years old, and some days I was doing it because I wanted to have the Sherwood Beret. I wanted to be in the special forces. But other days when I was completely fucked, I was blessed to have my last job, have a boss that was a complete asshole. All right. So I'm like, some days I was only moving forward because I'm like, if I stop here, I'm going to have to go back to that fucker. And there's no
Yeah.
goddamn way I'm going to be going back to that. So embracing that which you don't want often helps you propel forward. Now, I don't know, what your listeners' destiny is, okay? But I can take a pretty good guess at what it isn't, okay? And that is poor breathing, early death, poor functioning, and poor sleep.
Right.
And
Right.
and the good news is that is so easily corrected. And if you need help, I got a platform here to help you.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the platform that is going to unlock all those seeds of greatness that are just sitting there waiting to grow. And that's the kind of world I want to happily live in, to have people in that flourishing state, connected to their breath, connected to those full, peaceful, sovereign states where you can give yourself everything you need. Imagine leaving the house, having given yourself everything you need. Your day's just a victory lap. You're already abundant.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not a
Yeah. Sure.
competition anymore.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. You've already won, and the everything else is just icing on the cake. So, um, I think with that, Tim, I think this has been a wonderful conversation. Um, Great tutorial showing us how to basically do this breath work. 3 simple breaths. Um, Gosh, it's really been amazing. Where can people go? I know you have the app. Is there anywhere else that you'd like to
Look,
send people to
I got all the
look you up? Or
socials, but the world doesn't need more eyeballs staring at social crap, right?
sure,
I've
sure,
got that. Yes, you can follow us, no problem. But if I was to offer anything to anybody, it is to access those wonderful resources that are your own breath. I want to be the guy that connects you to the love of your life. Okay.
excellent.
There's enough social media out there. Yes, I've got it. I have to have it as part of my business. But if you could take anything, this is a subscription based model. Okay. There is a 28-day free trial. But for less than a cup of coffee, you will be able to nourish the most powerful part of you.
Excellent.
But if you want to reach out to me personally, I do run workshops. I can do one-on-ones. Just reach out through my website. I'm gonna send your listeners a few things. I'm gonna send a little link that the first 20 clicks will get my free audiobook. and there's a bunch
Okay.
of free breath work at the end of that. I'm also
Great.
going to include a link for that breath of possibility and breath of peace. Okay, so
Okay.
you can dial into that. So I'll send you a few free audiobooks. I'll give you all the links to my stuff, and as well as the link to the breath work that you can you can start knowing what it is to go into the day feeling powerful and connected.
Excellent. Well, and I will put all those links in the show notes. So, as soon as I get those from you, we'll pop them into the show notes. And listeners, yeah, check it out. Um, get the app, get the try to get some of those free downloads, all that good stuff. And Tim, thank you again so much for taking the time out of your day, and investing in us and helping us grow and flourish, through the practices that you just shared. So thank you.
No, it really warms my heart, Scotty. I feel like we've done some good here, and I feel like the people listening have got are really well equipped to pay forward powerfully into their lives and the lives of those people that they really love.
Excellent. Thanks again.